we've talked a lot about this in between media this season. There's going to be curveballs coming your way.
Hate's a strong word. I dislike Kirk Cousins more than probably any other quarterback in the league.
I get a little bit of that rookie-itis, you know?
I would have said, I would love some of what you're smoking.
Even though I strayed, I'm still stuck between an interpretation, what it all means. Can I make a difference for something different? My mind in prison, then I saw the vision. Played the field, it's no competition. Found success through the repetition. If it's impossible, stick to the mission. I'm just cruising through on my way to get it. I found myself somewhere in between. Yeah, I found myself somewhere in between. Found myself somewhere in between. Yeah, I found myself somewhere in between. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
So one thing that really sets us apart here is we're not afraid to talk about other things that maybe aren't super fantasy related.
Do what you can to become a better person, to become a better human.
All right. And here we go on another edition of the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your destination for both some feel-good life advice and some fantasy sports advice as well of the football variety. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock. You can find me on the Twitter bird at between_SethFF. Guys, we got a very special show for you tonight. A lot of breaking announcements for In Between Media and a special guest around the corner for you as well. As always, I'm joined by my brother, keeping it cool out there in crispy Colorado, Nate Polvogt. Nate, brother, what's up, man?
Oh, man, just another Wednesday night. Nothing different, nothing special, just another show. I kid. We have someone on tonight who I'm very excited about, and I'm stoked to be doing the show with my beautiful, amazing, wonderful wife for the first time. Jen, honey, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. I'm excited to be here. Got a drink open. Kiddo fell asleep hard, didn't have a nap today, so he's 2 sheets to the wind like a long time ago. Wait, is that a drinking reference? Should I not say 2 sheets to the wind? Maybe he is. I don't know. He was with my parents all day. He could be anything.
Totally. What he does at grandparents' house stays at grandparents' house.
Exactly right.
Absolutely. And what happens on the podcast, guys, stays on the podcast as well. Jen, very thankful for you to be here tonight. You guys are two of my best friends, and really happy to announce that Jen, in our slew of announcements tonight, Jen is actually going to be joining the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast as a regular co-host of the show. She's going to rotate every 3 weeks here on the show with Scott Rainier and Gary Zamarippa. So very thankful to have you here, Jen, as well. Before we get to our special guest and our final off-season session of the summer, I did want to make one special announcement that we will be officially partnering with Underdog Fantasy for the 2021 fantasy football season. Guys, I'm so stoked about this. Those of you who do not know about Underdog Fantasy, they are they're a newer upstart company. They were founded by the same guys who made the Draft app a couple years ago, and they're really focused on best ball, fantasy football, and some DFS. And best ball, those of you unfamiliar, it's really great for the casual fan because it takes all the hard work of fantasy football, the waivers, the injuries, the setting, the lineups, and it just breaks it down to the best part of the game, which is the drafting. Nate, I believe there's been a little bit of underdog going on over at the Polvogt's household lately. Is that right?
Yeah, I may have gotten into a few drafts. The thing is it's addicting because you can I did 2 full 16 to 18 man best ball drafts in 30 minutes the other day. 30 minutes with my nose in my phone, as Jen will attest to. But yeah, it goes quick and it's addicting.
Yeah, I'm super thankful to partner with them. I think it's a great thing for our audience, specifically the casual fantasy football player. Guys, if you want to try out Underdog, head over there. You can use our promo code IBT. Get yourself an additional $25 worth of credit when you deposit 10. Again, that's the code IBT. But yeah, super thankful to be with Underdog this season. Looking forward to some more work with them as well. Guys, I think without further ado, I would like to officially start our off-season session here, our final one of the summer, where we really get to kick it with some of the best names in fantasy football. And tonight is no different. All right. Tonight on the show, joining us is ESPN NFL insider and the co-host of the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast, Field Yates. Field, what's up, brother?
How are you? I thought we lost Jen there for a second when you cut back. Jen had disappeared. I thought maybe the baby woke up or the cats got a little bit. They were bothered by something. I've got my dog right next to me, so for some reason I go screen out. It's because he's causing a ruckus at my feet.
That was exactly it. It was the cat. He came up and was meowing like crazy. And I'm like, can you please be quiet just for a minute, please?
It's a little disruption. It's what we need in our podcast to keep them honest and interesting.
Yeah. So if I dip out, that's the reason why.
Duly noted.
Awesome. Field, how's your summer been, man? I see you've been busy over at ESPN. Fantasy football season's right around the corner for you.
Yeah, summer's been great. Thanks for asking, and thanks for having me on, first of all. And I'm glad to see all the great things that are happening with IBT this summer and the partnership with Underdog. They're doing an amazing, amazing job with not just building a brand, but also, as you guys have noted, it's very user-friendly. It does not require someone who's been playing fantasy football for 15 years to figure out how to make a lineup or draft a team with Underdog. So really cool group of people that are working there. You guys all know Josh Norris and Hayden Winks, amongst the many others who are doing a great, great job getting that company to just go to the moon. But my summer's been great. Typically I'm at the age where I feel like most of my summers are dictated by wedding weekends. Both my brother and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law got married this summer. So we've been busy traveling around to those, but we are now back. It is football season. The Fantasy Focus Football Podcast began again on Monday. So you're now going to be sick of us. You might already be sick of us, but we're back in your ears, on your screens, however you consume it, 5 days a week between now and the end of the season, which when you think about that, it's an extremely long time. And I don't know what I've gotten myself signed up for.
Absolutely. Field, just have to say, man, like what you guys do over there at the Fantasy Focus Podcast, man, like you're really a role model to everyone in this industry. I know you guys are a big reason I'm in this industry, Jen and Nate as well, and so many other countless people in the industry. So thank you for what you guys do over there.
Yeah, well, I mean, on behalf of the people that make that podcast go, and then the people that I actually enjoy working on it with, Stefania, Mike Clay, Daniel Dobb, I'm probably forgetting a person or two, but we have a blast every single day. We really do. And someone was holding this a long time ago, and it's one of those cliches that really isn't a cliche. It's a way of living your life, that if what you do doesn't feel like work, then you may never work a day in your life. And we have a lot of fun. It's like going to the bar every day for an hour. Now 11 to 12. The previous was 10 to 11. No drinking at this bar, but we still have fun, and we chop it up. We talk fantasy football with, we like to call it nonsense mixed in there. So it's a ton of fun. And what we love about the fantasy community is, kind of reminds me of the beer community, which cheers to everybody here on this show tonight, is that one fantasy football podcast will never be enough. One beer will never be enough. The more the merrier. And I'm constantly learning from really smart people like you guys to help me be better at my job and more entertaining. And our goal is to be equally entertaining and informative for those that are trying to do their thing, whether they already have a podcast like IBT, whether they're thinking about starting a podcast, or whether they're going to come take my job in 5 years. But give me like a little bit longer than 5 years, because I'm not quite ready to retire.
I get it.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. This feels like something you never want to retire from. You just kind of go until somebody tells you can't do it anymore. You're like, well, fine,
I
guess.
An NFL player, right? It's like a backup quarterback. Like when they tell me I have to retire, then I'll retire. But I'm not retiring until they tell me I have to. They're going to retire me before I retire myself.
Love it.
Absolutely. Field, I feel like the way you guys kind of, present yourselves on the podcast, you guys like to have fun a little bit. You kind of merge comedy. You obviously tell a little bit about yourselves on the podcast as well. We like to do kind of a little bit something similar. We specialize in feel good life advice, lifestyle advice, and kind of merge that with our fantasy football analysis. So with you here tonight, I thought we would really kind of talk about, like, we can always talk about fantasy football until we're blue in the face. And, you're one of the best analysts out there, but I thought tonight we could learn a little bit more about who Field Yates really is. So obviously, Field, we know you kind of grew up in the Boston area. You eventually went to Wesley, which majored in psychology, if I'm right on that.
Yeah, that's impressive.
What kind of led you there, Field? Like how was your childhood? How was your high school? What kind of led you to major in psychology? Because I don't think a lot of people would guess that when they look at you firsthand.
Yeah, a complete accident, to be honest with you. So I went to school with the intention, and when I say intention, really, I mean, like, I didn't have a better idea than to major in economics. I went to, a gen ed school, so we didn't have like a bunch of specific majors. There was like, I don't know, 15 or 18 of them. There wasn't like one of those schools. I always like to see, like, when you're watching a college football game, when it's like, this guy is a, very specific type of criminal justice major, right? Or, like hotel development major. I had like econ, psychology, biology, sociology, and a few others available to me. But I was trying to be an econ major. I struggled tremendously, and I made it through econ 101 okay, but econ 110 kind of was the bane of my existence. I took a cool social psychology course, which weirdly enough, it's actually played a pretty integral role in my life since then. I didn't realize it at the time, but the thing about psychology that I thought was useful was that psychology is a little bit of an opportunity to understand how others are thinking or feeling better. And while I didn't study psychology because I was planning on doing so for 10 years or because I had a specific field in mind beyond that, I really have felt that psychology has been useful every single day. I feel more equipped to interact with people from all different backgrounds, all different ages, you name it. And while it was never a plan, I've realized in life that sometimes the best plans are the ones that come together with a snap of the fingers as opposed to the ones that you spend 5 or 10 years trying to map out precisely.
Absolutely. I feel like us at In Between Media, we definitely kind of represent that notion a little bit. Nate, I mean, you and Jen kind of started in this, a little bit later in life, in your later 30s, opposed to me in my late teens. So you guys can definitely relate to that a little bit too.
I mean, my journey, obviously I was a kid who grew up Bronco fan, Red Sox fan, CU fan. Obviously I wanted to do something with sports, but when we were growing up, it was like so unrealistic to do it. It was like 1 in a million will make it. And everyone's parents said, well, you're not going to be that 1 in a million. So let's do something else.
Sure.
Yeah. I was kind of the same as Field. Like, I didn't know what I was doing in college. So I ended up taking, several classes. I remember my econ classes and was like, this probably isn't for me, but I'll keep trying, and then landed in, I have a degree in human communication. So like, that was really something that is useful every single day. Like you said, like, it's helped my marriage, it's helped friendships, it's helped, family relations. So I totally understand that. I didn't go into a field that was, like psychology. It's just helpful to have that education and to have that understanding of human behavior. And it's incredible to watch it unfold.
I agree. Yeah, I felt like I saw it when in my earlier days at ESPN, I was spending more time covering locker rooms. And for a little bit, it was going to the Patriots locker room every single day when I was sidekicking with the great Mike Reese, who was just an amazing, wonderful person who, if you're ever looking for good Patriots context that might be helpful for building your fantasy football roster, go follow Mike Reese. And I felt at that time that having a psychology background was useful as I was able to understand interpersonal dynamics a little bit more. I'm not saying that, I could relate to every single person, but I felt a little bit more qualified, or maybe not qualified, but a little bit more comfortable interacting with people that I may not have had a ton of common threads with. So I've always believed that life is sort of one big fun marathon as opposed to a bunch of short sprints to places where you're going to get to. And the psychology journey is certainly a good example of that for me.
Yeah, same.
Field, going back to your time at college a little bit, obviously you're probably busy with your studies, and I can definitely relate to that a little bit, leading my college newspaper and just doing a variety of things. But was there ever a moment like looking back that you can say on air that was probably your best or maybe most favorite college memory, wildest one?
Busy with all my studies in college. Yeah, it's funny. You know, I don't know that I have like a signature college moment that I think back upon and I say to myself, like, that was a turning point or that was, you know, the wildest or anything. I had a great experience. I went to Wesleyan, which is actually, oddly enough, about 20 minutes from where I live right now. So about 20 minutes from ESPN. And, you know, I think what I feel most fortunate about my experience, and this was not something that I could have ever planned. And it's not something that when you go to a, college admissions profile for school, this is not one of the things that shows up. But very fortunate for an amazing group of friends and, 5 very best friends who were amongst my groomsmen, 5 of my groomsmen at my wedding, talk to them daily, or almost daily. God, Jen, you said you were a communications, what was the second part of that major? Communication studies major? No, human communications major.
So
right?
It was a degree in communications with an emphasis in human communications.
All right. So I'm just going to say this, and I think Seth and Nate are going to have my back here. Guys are so much worse about keeping in touch with their friends than girls. My wife has these thoughtful FaceTime calls with her friends all the time. Meanwhile, like today, it was like an hour ago, and like my best friend, I was like, oh crap, it's his birthday. I should probably text him, right? Like that's just how we roll. So anyways, that was those guys though, very fortunate to have them all my life. And while I don't have like a craziest college memory, I do have the most memorable part of it, which is the relationships I met.
Yeah, I mean, I can attest. I talked to nobody. I was horrible at keeping those relationships, and now it's like Seth and Jen.
Yeah. No, well, you're a dad now. You got an excuse.
That's true. I do have a pretty good excuse.
Yeah. But you do still keep in touch.
With Jen, I keep in touch with Jen's friends.
Oh, husband of the year, right there.
I'm very lucky. She has amazing friends. So
nice.
Lots of guy friends too.
Lots of guy friends.
Yeah.
Helpful. Yeah.
And you beat them all in fantasy football.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Oh, do you?
I don't. I said you do.
You, Jen.
We were referencing you.
Yes. That is true. How did you meet your wife? Did she go to school with you?
No, believe it or not, this is fun. And our moms like to remind us of this. Our moms introduced us. So our moms have been friends for like 20 some odd years. And they were playing tennis with each other. And my mom and her mom started chatting, and my wife is a twin. And so my mom made a comment about having a son who was at the time single. And my now mother-in-law made a comment about having twins who were both single. One of them lived in Boston, which is where I lived at the time. And then one of them did not. So we figured out that not only did both of us live in Boston, we live in the same street. Now we're about, it's one of those sort of the core streets of Boston. So it was about, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of a mile down the road. So it's not like I was stumbling past her, every other day or something like that. But we were on the same street, literally. So shared a zip code. So we realized that even if our date went miserably the first time around, like we had to give it one shot. There's only so many excuses you can come up with to ignore your mom. So little did we know that it would turn into a marriage, but we did take our mother's suggestion, and it's a good reminder that mothers know best, and very fortunate that they were willing to share that suggestion at the time. And we've all these years later, here we are, just plugging away at the game of life.
Yeah. How long have you been married?
We've been married for a little over 2 years now.
Awesome.
Summer of 2019. That gives us 2 years. Yeah. So June of 2019. So 2 years, little over 2 years.
That's awesome.
That was right in the first place. I doubted myself there. I was starting to question my math. I was right. There we go.
Hopefully
Wait,
your
by
wife
the
is
way,
not watching this.
she's probably. I probably put her to sleep with my my insight so far. No, she's upstairs, and she said, "You know what? You got to go do a podcast. Why don't you go downstairs in the kitchen and do that?" So I've taken up the kitchen. She's upstairs in our room. So I feel like it would be appropriate. By the way, as Nate sent me a note for the show and said, "Hey, you want to drink during this? You're allowed to." So I saw someone ask what we were drinking in the comments. I'm seeing some of the comments that come through. So maybe we can go around. I am drinking a Sabotage, which is from Shorts Brewing. It's in Michigan. I believe it's Grand Rapids, Michigan. So shout out to anybody who might be from Michigan. Elk Rapids, Michigan, actually, specifically. So cheers.
Oh.
And wait, what is it again? It's an IPA?
It's called Sabotage. Yes, an IPA with Sabro hops.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I like it. It's
Awesome.
good. Never had it before.
Seth, what are you drinking?
Oh, I got the old reliable tonight, guys. Back with the Bush Apple. Little special edition. Those of you new to the show, Bush Light's the non-official drink of In Between Media. I think we had one of our guys drive up 6 hours to New York and got one of the helicopter launches with it a couple months ago. It's always kind of a staple here on the show. Delivered a best man speech a couple weeks ago with Bush Light Apple in hand. So always a big fan of Bush Light Apple. Bush Light, hashtag not a sponsor yet, but hopefully down the road.
How was your best man speech?
I made a couple grown men cry. So
Successful.
That's great.
That is good.
it
That's awesome.
When
All
I
right,
did
I
go ahead, Field.
no, I just want I want to hear Jen's. I'm assuming maid of honor story, but then I need to know if Seth had like a killer punchline or a joke that was one of those that like we'd all understand that you're just like that nailed it. But I want to hear Jen's maid of honor story first.
Oh no, I was shaking like a leaf. Like I have always done a public speech, like that's never been a problem for me. And then the day of my sister's wedding, we had just had a house flood and everything was torn down to the studs because we had asbestos in our bedroom. It's a whole long story, but so I was already like a little unraveled from that. And then my sister and her soon-to-be husband came into town, and we still had a porta potty out front and this huge dumpster from all the tear out of our house, and hadn't had sleep in weeks. And I just remember like I had this like anxiety attack where I was just like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. And the best man, so I've got my piece of paper and I'm standing there making all of this noise. And the best man is like, we've got this, bro. We've got this. I'm like, okay, we've got this. And he whips out his iPad. I'm like, you mother, are you kidding me? Like you come all tech savvy on me. And
yeah, iPad can't do that.
No, that's not fair.
What? Yeah, so that's
Fair to
that.
show
And
you.
then one of my other friends, I just did a speech for. I wasn't maid of honor or anything, but same thing. You can like hear the paper rattling in my hands in the video of these speeches. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what happened.
You know what? Liquid courage is the key. You got to have. I've met some people that are like, I'm not drinking till it's done. I'm thinking to myself,
oh no,
what kind of sicko are you? You know, like,
What's wrong
4 or
with
5
you?
beers. Yeah, you give me 4 or 5 beers, and I'll take the podium like I don't know.
Like you're the president of the United
grabbing
States.
the mic
Gonna
off
say,
and walking
like
around
I'm
the stage.
the world's most articulate, verbose
yeah.
speaker. Give me that title. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm actually officiating 2 weddings this October. So I gotta.
Wow,
Oh wow.
If anybody has any material they want to send my way, please let me know.
that's awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
here's my sister chiming in. What does she say?
Oh, look at that! How sweet is that she's watching right now? Hello,
Awesome.
Christina.
We have really good family support for all of
Yeah.
this, which has made it. Yeah, they're awesome. They're all awesome.
Worthwhile, right? That's great. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Jen and Nate, what are you guys? What are the Polvogts drinking tonight?
Oh, I'm drinking Truly. It's my favorite.
What flavor are you going with? Oh, pineapple? I can get
Pineapple.
that with pineapple. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
so good.
like
Addicting.
tropical variety pack from Costco, which is like
Ah.
$30. It's $1 a can. It's just hands down amazing.
So good. So good. And Nate, what do we got up there? That looks like a beer, not a Truly.
It's
Oh,
the
Costco.
Costco brand
How
citrus.
about that?
But
Wow.
I will say, don't knock it until you try it because it's like $17.99 for a 24 pack, and it's a really good IPA. So
Well, I am I'm an equal opportunity beer drinker, so I don't judge. I just drink.
Me too.
And yeah. But by the way, I feel like, we've had a couple like hashtag not a sponsor yet moments. Is Hotbox sponsoring you, Nate? Because our guy Bo.
Well, Bo's my homie.
Oh,
And it's the best
Bo.
hot sauce I've ever had. And Bo is one of the
You're
newest
making too
members. Well, he's one of the
Yeah.
newest members of In Between Media as well. So
Bo is a legend, and he
Bo
sent me
is
some of his product, and I'm almost done with my hot sauce bottle. So that's a good sign. And the spice rub, tremendous.
yes.
I'm not nearly as accomplished as, like, I wish I could make the world's most decadent slab of ribs, because every time I watch some food show on TV, I think to myself, this doesn't look that hard. It just requires patience. I haven't done it yet, but when I do make that perfect slab of ribs, it will be because I have the perfect spice rub to accompany it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Shout out Hotbox.
Yes.
Shout out Hotbox, that's right.
We might have a little bit special of an announcement coming out in the next week or two about Hotbox, so stay tuned for that. Field was trying to do some Big J journalism, though.
Okay,
So
I didn't know.
that.
I'm not trying to scoop anybody here. I had no idea.
Dude, if we're gonna get scooped, being scooped by Field Yates is like the greatest thing I can imagine.
Okay,
So
we'll
I'll
take
take
it.
it.
All right,
We'll take
there
it.
you go.
yeah.
Love it.
Absolutely.
I've too many beers in me. I don't know. I can't control my blabbering.
Well, I don't understand how you East Coasters do it anyways. Nate and I are like night owls, but everyone else in Colorado is like, yes, I'm going to bed between 9:30 and 10 tonight. And everyone on the East Coast is like, well, I don't eat dinner till like 9:30 or 10, and the news doesn't even come on until 11. So I don't know how you guys do it out there.
Oh, I'll be asleep. Probably, like, if I don't fall asleep during the episode, I'll be asleep like within, like, it's. I think there's like a 10% chance I brush my teeth tonight, which is probably like a really unsavory thing to say. But I'm going right from here. Like, maybe play with the dog for a little bit and then right to bed.
Awesome. Field, speaking of Big J journalism, man, how did you go from a psychology major to a sports journalist? Like what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, a little weird. So I always wanted to, as you guys mentioned, I grew up outside of Boston. And so I had this big life plan. And I'm glad I ditched the plan, because I'd be sitting here and sort of figuring out when it's going to come to fruition still. But I was planning on taking over as the Patriots head coach for Bill Belichick.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not going to happen for a while. As you guys all know, Belichick is still going strong and is showing no signs of wanting to retire. But, and this is one of those that I'd have to do the entire podcast on it to give you the full scope of the story. But when I was like 14, maybe, I had the opportunity, through knowing someone who knew someone who knew someone, to go and be a ball boy at a Patriots rookie minicamp.
Awesome.
And which now in the NFL, like, as we know, the offseason program is very hot button between the NFL and the NFLPA. This was a different time. And I went there and I was like literally wearing a penny as a ball boy, running around, catching passes, standing there as like a human blocker. I mean, it was not exactly the most athletic performance on my behalf, but we had a lot of fun with it. And I kept telling him, I said, I'll come back for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So that opened the door for me to eventually, a few years later, go and spend a couple of training camps before college with the Patriots. And then that turned into more training camps during college with the Patriots. And by the time that I graduated from college, a guy named Scott Pioli had taken the Chiefs general manager job. Yep. Scott is I don't even know how to describe his personality. There's not enough kind things I could say about Scott. He's a wonderful human. And he hired me. And so I went and moved to Kansas City. I was there from 2009 to 2011. And I had nothing to do with drafting Patrick Mahomes, nothing to do whatsoever. I wish I could take some credit for that. That was only like 6 years after I left. But had a great experience. And after that, but as I was sort of going through a season, I had this, I wish I could tell you what happened was I had this epiphany and I said, I want to go work for ESPN and I'm just going to leave the Chiefs and go to ESPN. All is good. I'm going to relocate back to New England. It was not nearly that well executed or thought out. It was more, I was 23. I was wondering whether life was going to pass me by. I had missed my 5-year high school reunion. Friends were getting engaged already and I'm a part of the celebrations. Other friends who were nowhere close to getting engaged were doing high school, they were meeting up with old high school buddies, or college buddies were doing Boston to New York or New York to Boston road trips. So I thought that maybe I needed to alter my path a little bit. I went home, got my real estate license, hated that. So I started blogging. And this is where I think it's relevant. I started blogging. And I know that blogging is certainly still something that exists today, but we have so many other mediums, whether it's podcasting, video podcasting, YouTube, video streaming service, social media. I started to do that along with the blog, but the blog and my Twitter account led me to reach out to, I'm talking 50 conservatively people in the New England area. And I eventually got the attention of a guy named Mike Reese, who I brought up earlier. And Mike asked me to come down for the night of the 2012 NFL draft. Mike covers the Patriots. That year they had 2 first-round picks. They took Dante Hightower and Chandler Jones, a couple guys that worked out pretty well for them, and Chandler Jones in Arizona as well. And that was the start of it. And so at ESPN, I think this is a sign of a good company, and I think there are a lot of companies that do this, is that they asked me to come in and do one thing, and they figured if I could do 2 things, and they figured if I could do 5 things, and then 5 turned into 10. And at some point, you stack enough opportunities and responsibilities on top of each other, and it's a full-time gig. And so here I am, I would say almost 10 years later, 9.5 or whatever, 9 years plus later, and loving every minute of it. Fantasy, as you all know, has become a big part, if not my primary responsibility at ESPN. And other than hanging out with Matthew Berry, it's a great job.
Feel that's awesome, man. It sounds like you've had, quite the journey going from A to B there, and kind of figuring out your path and all this. Was there one moment that was bigger adversity than anything else that really kind of shifted the way you thought, or what was that big moment in your life that you think you had to overcome?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably a time period more so than a moment. And, I came home from Kansas City, and when I was working in scouting, as you guys probably can imagine, it's not like the starting salaries for, scouts or people working in the scouting department, anything to write home about. So I didn't really have any life saving. I didn't have anything to my name. I was able to move in with my mom, which made a huge difference. But I sort of took this big, deep breath and had to make a choice. And the choice was basically do I find something to do for the rest of my life? I'll never forget this equation. Was that when you're sort of evaluating a job, you can make a list of pros and cons. And for a little while, I was looking for a job that offered the fewest cons. And instead, I decided to look for the job that had the most pros. And I decided, something, if I'm going to give sports a shot, I need to go all in. And I'd rather bet on myself. I think that's a good life strategy to uphold no matter what your circumstances are. But there was a period where I was barely making money. A lot of the places I was writing for, I was doing for free. And if not for living with my mom, I'm not exactly sure what I would have done. I was very, very lucky in that regard. But I would say that period was the most eye-opening for me. And it wasn't 5 years. It was shorter than that. It was, about a year or so. And I'm not trying to cry poor, cry foul here. It's just that it tests you mentally. And I think that I learned during that time that, if I was going to give this a shot, I had to go all in. And when I speak to people that are either thinking about getting into the industry at a young age, middle age, older age, circumstances are different. But if you have the opportunity to go all in and bet on yourself, that's the one thing that I will tell everybody, that if there's one piece of advice above all else, I would say, other than, treat humans nicely, I would say it would be bet on yourself. And that's going to, I think, most times work out for you.
That's such good advice. But it's such a hard thing to do sometimes, because you wonder, like, is what I'm doing good enough? But when you bet on yourself, I mean, you're going to find out one way or the other. Because if you're not good enough at it, and you're not good at what you're putting yourself all in on, you'll know pretty quickly.
I think so too. And I think that validation is a unique thing, and we all receive validation in different ways. Social media can be a source of validation in some ways. It can also be a stress on validation, right? How many likes do you get on Instagram? How many views do you get in your videos? You tweet, how many this or that? Everything's quantified, right? And I'm sure, Nate and Jen can speak to this as having a family already. But, I feel like at some point my validation quickly turned into like my inner circle, right? And so that was sort of enough for me. And that, the people that I care about are there, and feel like, I'm giving it my best, and they think it's good enough, then like, I'm gonna have to trust that. And so, yeah, I mean, I always tell someone who's trying to get into the minute you are deterred and you start to like play the odds, like the odds tell you it's probably not going to work out, right? Like there's probably, I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of students out there who want to go and be the next insert journalist here, right? Matthew Berry or Adam Schefter or, Randy Moss, you name it. But not all of them are going to get there. But if you let yourself believe that you're not going to get there, you're definitely not going to get there. It's like golf. You got everything for you golfers. But I'm not a good golfer at all, Nate, but and Jen, I play a good amount of golf. But I got a friend who always talks to me about swing thought. He's like, if you go up to that tee box and you think you're going to hit a crappy drive, you're going to hit a crappy drive. So
every time.
I'm a believer that the first chance or the first path or the first stepping stone to success is believing in yourself and being willing to go all in.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that advice, Field. I can definitely.
You're doing it right now, Seth. Right? I mean, this is your journey, man. Like,
that's right.
You got age on your side, you got time on your side, but the hustle now is going to pay off in a way that I hope you're dreaming it right now, but maybe it's even beyond what you're dreaming right now, which is, I think, the best part about it.
Yep. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I actually just penned one of my Start Sitting Seth columns earlier this week about, at this age, there's a lot that goes into it. I do this on top of my full-time job working at Penn State. So there's not a lot of free time. And I'm luckily somewhat closer, to like 2 hours from my hometown, but like I still see my, back home friends maybe like twice a year, 3 times a year. It's tough. Yeah. And, I talked about like in that column specifically, there was a line, like, what if I go all in on this and, waste my youth and it doesn't pay off? And at the end of it though, I was like, it's worth the journey. And like we've always said here at In Between Media, like, yes, we love fantasy sports, but at the end of the day, we love life that much more. And yes, we want to help everyone win their fantasy leagues, whether it's NASCAR, whether it's golf, whether it's their fantasy fighting DFS, whether it's football. But like, if we can help someone get through something they're going through in life and live life to their best potential, like that is our main mission here. And if I can help one person with that, then, it was a life fulfilled living, and, it was a journey worth taking.
Well, just based on what you just said right there, a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to follow along closely, and I'll be looking up at the top when you're there. But also, man, like what you said, like you're already doing it. Like you're already there, right? Like it's already worth it because of the perspective that you have and that the entire show has. I mean, it's clear that, we have a lot of fun talking about fantasy sports. I got nothing on the NASCAR stuff, nothing. So I can't help you guys out there. I love Dale Jr. because he loves fantasy football. I know he's retired from NASCAR, but I got nothing there, man. And other than, but so I can't offer any advice. but it's like, we do this for fun, but it's passion. It's people always ask me, they're like, when do you study for your job? I'm like, study? I don't study.
Right.
I live and breathe this stuff, man. Like, I could be building houses, and I'd probably spend, a couple hours a day on, I still call it Roto World, but NBC Sports Edge. All the places that I consume every single day. Like, I'd be on Twitter. I'd probably be like one of those accounts that replies to all the Schefter and Woj tweets with, weird, like, what are you doing responses? But I'd still be on Twitter thinking about football all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's where Nate and I have been for years and years. I had a full-time job and then had our son Jackson, and it was like, I don't like what I'm doing anymore, and it's really like a time suck and a life suck, and I literally want to be watching the herd and
NFL Live.
Yeah,
there you go, Nate. Yeah.
I should have led with
Jackson,
that, to be fair.
Yeah. Was Jackson named after Lamar, Bo, or Steven Jackson?
Well, probably Bo. If I had to pick a Jackson he was named after, honestly.
Yeah,
okay.
Bo Jackson for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Even though he was a Raider. He will be 4 in just about a month. In a month. Actually. In a month.
I love it. All right. Well, when Jackson is Seth will have his run, and then Jackson will have his run.
Yes.
Jen and Nate and I will be Nate and I will be gray. Jen will be aging gracefully.
Yes. Yes.
I'm already
we'll
gray.
be watching you guys.
So I beat you there.
It's character. It's character, my friend.
It is character. It's just why I can't grow a beard anymore, because I look like I'm like 55 or 60.
Well, I can't grow a beard, period. So, hey, this is like, you can see that right there. That's about a couple months worth right there.
Don't tell me that. I've been telling my girlfriend, I'm like, by the age of 24, I am going to have a beard. I told her that, and that was like 2 weeks ago. So she's listening. I'm sure she's super crushed by you saying that right now.
You better get some of that hair growth tonic, Seth. Start rubbing it in there, man.
I'm trying to think what my goals were by the age of 24. Like, by age of 24, it was like, I could do a beer bat in less than 6 seconds or something. Like, you're way ahead of the curve.
Yeah, you are.
Awesome. Well, Field, I appreciate you sharing your journey with us, man. We do have a fun segment left for you tonight. We're going to take you back to your high school, college days with a little bit of a game we like to call Would You Rather.
Risky business or that fair say. Are you that hard on the rise? Still chilling with a cold one, even bold one, or hold back? Would you rather? This ain't no simple matter.
All right. First of all, I want to give a shout out to our guy, Nate Miller, who makes all the music for the show. He's at ISM. He actually just dropped a brand new album last Friday. So you can find it on wherever you're streaming, Apple Music, Spotify, if you don't like good music and you're trying to stay away from Apple. But check him out. He's on at ISM on all the platforms. So Field, first question for you tonight, man. Would you rather have to spend 4 years? You have to go to Kutztown University, Mike Clay's alma mater.
Yeah.
You have to go to Kutztown for 4 years, or would you rather have to room with Matthew Berry for 15 years?
But
First of all,
at his current age, like he has to go back to college.
Yes,
his current age for the next
yes.
4 years. Yeah.
I mean, it's not even close. Kutztown, first of all, I don't know. Kutztown, I know Kutztown's in Pennsylvania. I don't know much more about it, but I do know that I love Mike Clay. I'm sure everybody on this podcast loves Mike Clay. Talk about somebody who knows his stuff. Yeah. Mike is the most prepared person you will ever meet, and his ability to find what matters and give you that information is unparalleled. Love Mike. It's Kutztown. It's not close. You could have given me 15 minutes with Matthew Berry as my roommate, and I would have said no. You know, I mean, gosh, 15 minutes. I mean, I can barely make it to the podcast every day. So absolutely 4 years at Kutztown and not 15 years. Ugh.
Oh, man.
15 minutes with Matthew.
Awesome. Jen and Nate, where are you guys on at this? I will say I do know where Kutztown was. I actually got a job offer from Kutztown last year. So I went and visited it. It's about 15 minutes away from where my girlfriend grew up. I didn't want to work there. But that aside, Nate or Jen, what are you guys taking here? Would you rather Kutztown, Matthew Berry roommate?
Jen, why don't you take this one?
I'd probably do Kutztown just because I really, really loved my college time. Like,
Yeah,
I
there you go.
grew up and I was independent, and my dad was like, okay, here's your money to buy your books and your food and pay your rent. And if you decide to use that money for something else, you better find out how to make more money. And it was just like, I made a ton of friends and went to a couple of different colleges. My dad did yank me out of my first college because it wasn't going so well. And he put me at the University of Northern Colorado, and it ended up being great. So I choose college at my current age because I could drink those kids under the table. Nate?
So I would take Kutztown as well because I kind of missed out on the whole college experience because I was a chef out of high school and I made a lot of money, which in hindsight I should have gone to college because I'm not a chef anymore. I haven't been for 15 years.
It's all part of the journey. It's
all part of the journey.
Night. You cook every night, and that's all that matters.
That is true. I do cook every night. I take the 4-year college experience because I just never got to have it.
Wow.
Nothing against Matthew Berry.
Hopefully Matthew.
Nothing against Matthew Berry.
Podcast tonight.
Tons against Matthew Berry. Hold on. You guys speak for yourselves over there.
You know, there's a radio, fairly prominent now, sports radio guy here who actually roomed with Matthew Berry for a year at Syracuse. Speaks very highly of rooming with him. Darren McKee.
Darren and Matthew roomed together at Syracuse?
He talked about it on the radio one time. So I'm taking that as true.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry for Darren. Jeez.
I don't know. I might be more sorry for Matthew.
That's awesome. All right, Field. Next question here for you. Would you rather have to switch jobs with Stefania Bell or Daniel Dobb?
Ooh. Wow. Well, I'm assuming that you get the perks of the person's life if you switch to their job, or no?
No, same life, their job.
Okay. All right. I think I'm switching with Stefania, which I would have done if you included the perks, because she gets like, you know, she's one of those people that gets like showered with she gets like the personal fans, people like feed her grapes and stuff. Like she gets attended to, you know, hand and foot. It's just amazing. And Daniel has like mustard spread on his nipples in the fantasy show, and he's constantly having to do weird stuff there. He has to spend even more time with Matthew than I do. So you're sensing a theme here.
I'm picking
Stefania
up on that. Yeah.
Stefania would be the answer. A lot of pressure to be Stefania. I mean, she's the GOAT, but I still would go with Stefania.
Nate, Jen, I'm sure you guys would gladly switch jobs with them and bring one of those guys in between media. But what would you rather do? Injury analysis or back-end audio editing?
Definitely injury for me. Like, I love that. I live for that. I find that it's so telling for the future. And I live for injury reporting. That's one of my things. So yeah, for sure.
It's true. And we've actually talked about how much she would love to do like more injury focused stuff in our analysis. I'm taking Dobb because the whole injury thing, like, I don't know. I don't have a medical focused brain and it confuses me.
Yeah. You just gotta, I mean, I don't know if you have a hairy chest or not, but it's going to get peppered with something.
Yeah.
He does.
It might be whack.
No. Yeah, that could happen. I could see that happen.
That show's, we love that show, but poor Daniel.
Yes.
He probably loves it.
I think he does too, which is the dirty little secret of it all.
Definitely.
All right, guys. Well, we have just time for one more quick segment. We're going to go into my favorite segment of the show, weekly advice.
Weekly
All right, so weekly advice, my favorite segment of the show. This is where we kind of round it out with some feel-good life advice, kind of our take-home bullet points for our audience, for our listeners of the podcast. Field, I feel like your journey is particularly inspiring to a lot of people. Obviously, you switched career paths. You ended up with the worldwide leader in sports, in your early 20s, and not only that, but now you're in your 30s, and you really kind of wear so many different hats for them. You're an insider, you're the co-host of the podcast, and you're always doing different things for the network. And I'm sure you have other things you're doing on your own end as well. But like, how do you, when you walk away from life or from ESPN that day, like how do you remember to live life? Like, how do you remember to go have fun, whether it's with your friends or with Chapin or with yourself or your dog? Like how do you know, kind of how to live that in between there?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, and I think I know, I haven't yet met your girlfriend on screen yet. My instincts tell me that she's probably a real keeper, and I know that Nate and Jen have their respective keepers. I will say this, Nate, I really, this goes to both you and Nate and Jen, is like, they've always told me that every marriage includes a reacher and a settler, and I get the sense that Nate and I were both the reachers who got kind of lucky.
That would be correct, sir.
Okay, our wives might have been sort of the settlers.
For sure.
But, okay,
for sure. She dated a professional soccer player right before me. So,
oh man,
to be fair,
wow. Okay, well,
I outkicked my coverage, man, and I will tell anybody who asks me that. I did.
I love that. But to answer the question a little bit more seriously, Seth, is that something? So nothing that any of us do with fantasy football is going to define us. And I mentioned earlier, like kind of like my two sort of rules to live by are like, be kind. Kindness is something that I think can be a foundation of any relationship, any friendship, any acquaintance, ship, and also, if that's a word. And then also, to bet on yourself. And so for me is that like fantasy football is a huge part of what I do. And I love the community that we have. And I'm inspired by other people. I'll tell you, like, I don't care how large or small your platform is. Like if you're hustling, like I respect the heck out of that. Right. And like, just because I have a certain platform at ESPN, it is not guaranteed that my coverage, my predictions are going to be right or wrong. I hope that they're going to be right more often than not. But like, I don't care if there's somebody whose platform is them and like they do a podcast for their dog. Like, if that person's got good content, I'm going to respect it. So I love fantasy football. It really is a huge part of who I am now. But it's not far from the most important thing. And I felt fortunate to meet my wife. I feel like the luckiest person in the world every single day. And while a lot of what I'm passionate about does revolve around sports, we got other interests that balance us out. And, I'm not the best about putting my phone away and just like totally disconnecting entirely 100%. I think maybe that changes when you become a parent a little bit because someone's depending upon you, maybe for at least at the early ages of life for a child. But, I think balance is just like I would say that it's not really an effort for me. It's something that I try to make sure that I keep natural, is that I'm not thinking about having to go and do something intentionally because it's going to distract me or get me away from fantasy football. So whether it's travel or, I love to golf, love to drink beer. I'm not the greatest chef, but I'm definitely not Nate, but I like to cook. So things like that can sort of naturally take your mind away. Yep.
Well, we kind of talked about this earlier, not on the show, but like, what do you do on a Friday night or a Saturday night? Like, what is a field night with your wife or a weekend? Like, are you guys just kicking back and binging something on Netflix, or is it like, yeah?
Yeah, recently it's been that, and maybe that's just like the trickle down to the pandemic, right? That we live in New England where things right now are doing okay, but we went through what the entire world went through for a lot of last year, and then up until probably the early spring, where a lot of your time was just at home. But before that, this is what I always loved about my wife when we first started dating was that I always said that. Remember, like when we first started dating, we were going to go do a weekend trip to Nantucket. And before the trip, we were thinking about it, and then we started to waver for a second because we texted a couple of friends that we thought were going to be there. And each of them had responded, "Hey, I'm not going to be around." And we were like, "Oh, man, are we going to go there and just like be the only people on the island?" And we decided to go. And when we got there, we had maybe an hour by ourselves. The entire weekend it was running into a friend here, friend there. So it's emblematic of how life was always a journey for us, that like we don't plan as much socially as maybe we would have in a different stage of our lives. Now we're in a place where it's like, between the dog and the pandemic, it's like we're pretty motivated to just, whether it's the Olympics, whether it's sports in general, or frequently Netflix. Outer Banks has been our thing recently.
I just started that 2 days ago, and I was like, "This is amazing," and I will continue to watch this. Nate showed up. Yeah, Nate showed up like 3/4 through the first episode, and he's like picking it apart. I'm like, "Bro, you need to start this over and watch it because I'm not having."
Which I will.
This show is
Don't knock it till you try it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This show is fantastic, and I'm not going to have your negativity in here. So you could go to the other room and start this episode over, please.
To be fair, I did watch almost all of Gossip Girl with you.
You did.
Most of Gilmore Girls with you.
Another classic.
You did.
Oh, they're so
I like
good.
Gilmore Girls.
They're so good.
Yeah, so good.
Mm-hmm.
Mindless television. I love it.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's awesome.
It's
That's
amazing.
awesome.
After Jackson goes to sleep, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
what are we
Yes,
watching?
agreed.
What are we drinking? Like, this is all we care about right now.
Love it.
Awesome.
Yeah, you gotta have a nice collection of all the finest, and by finest I mean Costco offering of beers and Trulies and scotches and everything in between.
Yes.
Indeed.
Awesome. Well, Field, thank you so much, man, for providing. I'm sorry we didn't get any fantasy football analysis, but I
That was the
appreciate
best
you
part of
opening
it.
up about your life,
Yeah.
man.
We all
You
have
know
to
what?
do plenty of analysis.
Yes. Thank you for sharing your life with this, Field.
Of course, you guys probably have, honestly, my thoughts. What is fantasy football, as we all know, as a closing thought, is that like there are some topics that we probably all have like-minded opinions on, right? Like probably all think Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott and Aaron Rodgers. Some more are going to be the top quarterbacks off the board. Probably have a lot of the same sleepers. It's just a matter of how we present it sometimes. But what I don't have the opportunity to talk about frequently is hearing about, Seth's rise and how Nate and Jen met, and how Nate was chef out of college, and how Jen could have been Ronaldo's wife and said she got stuck with Nate. Things of that nature. We don't get that opportunity frequently.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Well,
awesome.
thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you. This has been
Thank you guys for having
amazing.
me.
Yeah.
It's been an
Absolutely.
awesome hour.
We'll do it again at some point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, guys, you can check out Field. He's always on ESPN. Check him out on the podcast with his best friend, Matthew Berry, as well. Field, thank you so much. Thank you to our audience for tuning in, not just this episode, but every episode this season. It's really been a wild ride, and we're excited to get towards the fantasy football season with you. We'll be back here next week, but until then, guys, keep it in between.
The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
The one thing that really sets us apart here is we're not afraid to talk about other things that maybe aren't super fantasy related.